Hey, everybody, Off the Mic Sports Network here. Welcome to another edition of Off the Top Rope. Thanks so much to everybody for joining me here. Want to talk some women's wrestling. I did talk about this. I think TNA is doing a better job with their women's division than AEW is, and AEW's got a better talent pool to work with. And yet, TNA, 3 women's matches for their show a week after All in Texas. All in Texas only has 2, one of them being a gauntlet match. But I want to focus specifically on Mercedes Monet and Toni Storm, a match that I've talked a lot about. A lot of people think I'm obsessed with Mercedes because I talk a lot about her, because she is a big conversation point in the world of professional wrestling. There's no doubt what she's capable of and what she's done for, women's wrestling as a whole. For AEW, she really hasn't done much. I think I've misdirected some of my frustration with, her push and her rise to the top in AEW, because I think a lot of this needs to go to creative, specifically Tony Khan, because it's become very evident when it comes to the women's division and when it comes to this match coming up in Texas in just about a week's time, a week from Saturday. AEW has no plan for their women's division whatsoever. I mean, they don't have a lot of plans for anything, period, but it is clear as day that even for Mercedes and Monet and Toni Storm, there's no plan. There is literally no plan. And they have had 5, 6 weeks to build this match and create a compelling story, and they have done nothing. Absolutely nothing. We've seen 3 steak dinners. We've had lesbian kissing. We had Mercedes win a championship. We had Mercedes defend the title. We had Toni Storm wrestle a couple of random matches that meant nothing. And that's your build for 2 of the biggest stars in women's wrestling today, wrestling a match in what is considered a dream match. And they have had no plan whatsoever of how to create a compelling story. They're just basically like, hey, we got this on the bill. We don't need to do anything else. They'll go out and wrestle a good match, and and more than likely they will. I really have zero doubts that Mercedes and Toni, they're 2 of the best in the world. I have zero doubt that they're going to deliver in the ring. I've been very critical of Mercedes because of, just her not losing, her having 17 championships, which really isn't good optics. But at the end of the day, they had an opportunity here to really create a compelling story. And yet it's just Toni defending the women's championship. Mercedes does not have, she has the TBS title. She's not even putting that on the line. And literally the whole feud has been a bunch of, Mercedes not taking things seriously. She licked the cake on Wednesday. She's eaten steak. She's been on her phone. She had a weird promo backstage calling Toni Toni has cut some stuff saying she's not a normal motherfucker. And then just exchanging stuff back and forth. It's pretty basic stuff in the grand scheme of building big time matches. But considering what this could have been, and I even said it when the match got made, I had zero faith in the creative team in this company to create a compelling story. And it's really just, and from the stories that have been leaked to the media through Fightful and all these other media outlets, they have pointed out that this has been Tony Khan's direction and everything that he wanted to do. He wanted to get Toni and Mercedes in the same ring to wrestle on his biggest show of the year. That was always the direction, even though it was clear as day. Mercedes and Athena could have easily been a better option, and Toni could have faced Chris Statlander, could have faced Jamie Hayter, could have faced Willow Nightingale, could have faced anybody. But this is the direction that they wanted to go. And they gave it to you. And, hey, everybody was clamoring the minute that this match was booked for after Double or Nothing when Mercedes won. Hey, this should main event. I'd argue that this is the 4th most important match on All In right now. I'd say the tag match between the Young Bucks and Will Ospreay and Swerve Strickland is more important. And that this is all because of bad booking. I can't even fault Mercedes and Toni. They're not being given good stuff. And Mercedes is the type of talent that, hey, you got to give her good creative. And some of it, maybe she has creative control. But, even in WWE, she had better creative. And that sort of masks some of her, flaws. She's still very talented And in a good environment, like a lot of other talent that we've seen in this place, she can be effective. Toni Storm is one of those who's risen above the creative and created a character that has really transcended the business in time was Toni Storm. And it's great. But even she hasn't been able to rise above this creative just debacle. There is no plan whatsoever. And there's no preparation for what the outcome is. And I've said on this channel, no matter what the outcome is, AEW screwed. Because if Toni wins, she's the women's champion. She beats Mercedes Monet. Mercedes Monet gets her first loss. Mercedes is still the TBS champion, but she has just lost in the biggest match of the women's division that you could deliver in this division. If Mercedes wins, she's a double champion. The whole women's division is casualties. There's nobody that measures up to her. And it becomes a little bit of just, okay, how are we going to get the TBS title off of her? And it's just you're holding down the women's division. This is bad booking. Some of this could be political behind the scenes, and maybe some of my anger has been a little bit misdirected at Mercedes a little bit. But Tony Khan and his creative team have totally fucking failed this women's division from jump. It's almost like Mercedes gets there, hey, we got to give her everything. I don't know if some of this, I don't know what relation it was in terms of creative control, because that's been a big discussion in AEW. But you look at the way that this whole match was set up, you knew from the minute this tournament happened that Mercedes was winning. Everybody knew it. Even some people were trying to talk themselves into Jamie Hayter. It was like, come on. The way this women's division has been booked for the last year, you knew Mercedes was winning. And then even when they had a chance to create a compelling story, they didn't even do that. And here we are, we're here about 7, 8, 9 days away from this event. And a match that some people thought legitimately had an argument to main event this show feels completely insignificant. Completely insignificant. It's a championship match. And, hey, the outcome's somewhat in doubt. I don't know who's going to win. I think it's going to be Mercedes, but I wouldn't be shocked if Toni won. There's no good outcome out of this, because either way, the women's division looks horrible. And you've left a bunch of casualties in the wake just to get to this match. And then you didn't give us any reason outside of the fact that there's these two women in this match. And it can't be that way in wrestling. You have got to give us a reason to care. It can't just be Toni Storm, Mercedes Monet, two of the greatest of all time, two of the great women who are working today. You can't just have that be on the marquee and just say, hey, go wrestle. Look at Mariah May and Toni Storm a year ago. A lot of people didn't know who Mariah May was until she got into the storyline with Toni Storm. That meant so much more because of the story that they told. You mean to tell me that you couldn't do something compelling for 6 weeks to get us to care? There's no plan for the women. Like, you've got people just sitting and catering. Barely can crack Collision. And yet you killed the whole division to get to this match, and then you didn't even bother to give anybody a cat. Like, obviously the sickos will care, and I'll watch because, like I said, I have respect for what these two do in the ring. But if you're trying to grow and trying to get other people interested in this, you need to tell stories. And yes, they've done a better job in recent weeks of, like, with the men's matches, Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada, Hangman Page and Jon Moxley, and then obviously this Swerve Ospreay Young Bucks match. But they were late to the party on this. The women, it's almost like they just put the pencil down and they were just like, hey, we got the match. Let's do whatever. It's embarrassing. If you're a women's wrestling fan, you got to be insulted. Toni and Mercedes deserved a better build than what we're getting. It'll be a great match. I don't doubt it. But there is no plan in the women's division whatsoever. And it has been evidenced by the way that they've booked this women's division to get to this point. Everybody's been laid to waste. And now we're just like, okay, we've got the match here. Now we'll figure it out after. I don't even know what the women's division is going to look like after whoever wins this match next Saturday. I really don't. Seriously. Tony Khan and the creative team absolutely failed this women's division, and especially Toni Storm and Mercedes Monet. This could have easily been a better story. So sorry to the Mercedes fans that I misdirected my anger. I'm still frustrated because I think she is such a big star that she could potentially do more for the women's division, but also the booking has kind of just failed her. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Bye bye.